we were having this conversation, my lovely wife was in Texas at the beach, and she sent us pictures from the beach, and she sent us videos from the beach. I did not love those pictures, because I looked around outside and I'm thinking, wow, it's like dismal and miserable here. And she's sending me pictures from the beach, and she's sending me videos from the beach. Are we not supposed to love the beautiful world that the Lord created? Is that what John is saying here? Is he saying don't love those things? This is the part where somebody should say no. Thank you. No, that's not what John is talking about. That's not what John is talking about at all. What John is talking about is this. This world has a system. This world has something else that controls it. And I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. And I'm not talking about this idea that there are these people behind everything spending tons of money to make sure that things go the way that they want. And, I know all about the theories about these people that have been behind everything since the 1500s, and they've been dumping money in to make sure that everything goes exactly the way that they want. Hogwash. Hogwash. Here's the conspiracy. The conspiracy is simply this. There is someone that Paul in Ephesians 2 calls the prince of the air. There is a system that the world follows. There is a system that the world hears. So we deal with it a lot in different things. In cartoons, you might see that moment where something happens to Daffy Duck and he doesn't know how he's going to react. And all of a sudden, an angel Daffy pops up on this shoulder and a devil Daffy pops up on this shoulder, and they start telling him what he's supposed to do. And that's the world kind of sees things that way. There is this voice that the world listens to, that the world hears. And John is saying we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware that that's going on. And it's not an idea that's unique with John. Paul wrote one of those verses that pretty much all of us know, Ephesians 6, verse 12, says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." There is a spiritual battle. There's a spiritual war that's going on. We get confused because for us it goes like this. Devin's driving down the road and he cuts me off in traffic. And I get scared because I almost rear end him, and I get angry and I get upset. And I all of a sudden start thinking Devin is my enemy. And I all of a sudden start thinking, saying things that I shouldn't say about Devin to Devin, even though he can't hear me because he's in a different car with his windows rolled up, and I'm in my car with the windows rolled up. And it doesn't matter what I'm saying to him because he can't hear a thing. And if I'm really angry, not me, mind you, I wouldn't do this, but some people might. They might start waving at him with only one finger instead of using all their fingers when they wave at him. Again, I wouldn't do that, but some people might. Some people, and all of a sudden we're thinking, because Devin did this thing, even though we may not even know Devin, he's the enemy. But he's not. He's not even close to the enemy. The enemy is the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places, the cosmic powers over this present darkness, the rulers and authorities, which are not government officials. Paul was not talking about government officials here. He was talking about spiritual things. He was talking about the fact that there is a war going on, and it's a spiritual war. There is a Native American philosophy, and they say that inside of each of us there are two wolves, a white wolf and a black wolf. The white wolf stands for everything that's good and holy and pure. The black wolf stands for everything that's evil and dark. And they say that every day these two wolves fight. And the one that wins the battle every day is the wolf that gets fed. The one that we feed. That's right, the one that we feed. Amy Grant captured it. I don't think it was her song. I think Brown Bannister wrote the song. But in a song called Old Man's Rubble. And she said, deep within you there's a spiritual battle. There's the forces of darkness and the forces of light. And just by listening, you've made your decision, because the voice you hear is going to win the fight. Do not love the world, John says, or the things of the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of flesh, the desires of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not from the Father. So let's talk about this world system for a second. John says these things are this is part of the world system. The desire of the flesh. And sometimes when we hear that, we might get the wrong idea. We might think that this is just a sexual thing, that this is just a sexual immorality thing. It's not. That's part of it. That's part of it, because sensuality is part of it, but greed is part of it. Covetousness is part of it. What is covetousness? Idolatry. Devin, I'm glad you're sitting close, because I can use you for examples all the time. Devin has this amazingly awesome t-shirt on. And I look at it, and I want it. And I want it so bad that I'm going to make up any excuse to get it from him and take it from him. Covetousness. I covet what you have. I want what you have. No, sorry, it's not really that good. Just because it says awesome on it doesn't mean it's an awesome t-shirt. But it is kind of. It looks good on you. It wouldn't look so good on me. Anger is part of this world system. But doesn't the Bible say be angry and sin not? Yep, it does. It absolutely does say that. But what does that mean? That means that we get angry at the things that God gets angry at. We're not angry because somebody kicked us in the knee. We're not angry because somebody took something of ours that we thought that they shouldn't take. No, we get angry at the things that God gets angry at. The things that bother God should bother us. That's what it means to be angry and don't sin. But when our anger is fueled by our pride, You took something that belongs to me. You took something that I want. You have something that I want, and it's not fair that you have it. And when we allow that to fuel our anger, that is wrong. Slander. Slander. When we say things about people that aren't true. That's part of the way the world does things. That's not part of the way that we do things. This is a fun one. Obscene talk. Obscene talk is part of the world system. Some translations render this foolish talk. But obscene talk, this talk that has absolutely no value for anything spiritual. It just confuses us. It just trips us up. It just gets our eyes off the prize. That's part of this world system. Desires of the eyes. And again, this sounds like it would be talking about sexual stuff. You see that really good-looking person of the opposite sex walking down the street. And you think, wow, I want. But it could just as easily be that really nice red Ferrari driving down the street. It could just as easily be, I'm going to pick on Jesse because Jesse just bought a nice red Miata. It could be that red Miata, and I see Jesse driving down and going, wow, I'd really like to have that. It could be that. But here's the one that's the most confusing, the one that I think that we miss. Pride of life. And I think the reason why we miss it is because some translations say in here, pride of possessions. Well, pride of possessions is kind of already covered in the first two, in the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes. But pride of life is a completely different thing. Pride of life is this. I am good enough on my own. I don't need any help. I don't need anyone. I certainly don't need God. I can do it on my own. I'm a good man. I don't drink and I don't smoke and I don't chew and I don't go with girls that do. Some of you will get that a little bit later. I'm good enough. Pride of life. I have accomplished so much. Surely God would not keep me out of heaven. I'm me. Don't you know me? I'm fun. I'm a lot of fun to be around. I'm nice to people. I share with people. I'm generous. Surely God would take me. It's a problem with that. It doesn't work that way. In Luke 18, we looked at Luke 18 last week a little bit. We looked at a parable that Jesus talked about prayer. But right afterwards, Jesus told another parable. Verses 9 through 14, it said, he also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven. But he beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you that this man went down to his house justified, rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. In America, this is a hard thing, because in America, what do? We pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and we work hard. And what do we tell our kids? If you work hard, if you're diligent, you can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. Right? Yep, that's what we tell people. That's what we tell ourselves. We can do it. I can do it. I don't need anybody's help. I'm good enough on my own. John tells us that these are things that we're supposed to avoid. In fact, if we mess with these things, the love of the Father is not in us. So what does it look like in real life? Where rubber meets the road, what does it look like? Peter took up this theme in 1 Peter 2, verses 21 through 25. This is my life verse. When I first read this passage, it shattered my life. For to this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example, so that you might follow in his steps. He committed no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. Okay, we can all do that, right? We can all live sinless lives with no deceit found in our mouths, right? No? You don't think you can? No, I don't think I can either. But you know what? That wasn't the part that got me. Here's the part that got me. When he was reviled, when people called him names, when people threw rocks at him, when people spit on him, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly. He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed, for you were straying like sheep, but have now returned to the shepherd and the overseer of your souls. It's counterintuitive. It's 100% the opposite of how we want to react. How do we want to react if somebody walks up to us and slaps us? How do we want to react? Punch them back. That's right. We want to punch them. Don't you disrespect. How many times have you said something like, don't disrespect me like that? Many times. That's right. We all do that. Don't talk to me like that. Don't do that to me. Don't act like that. You don't have a right to do that to me. I was talking I'm an administrator in a Facebook community. And one of the things that we do is we ask, what would you do? And the situation that was put up was this. You go on vacation and you come home and you find out that your neighbor has moved the privacy fence from the property line to 2 feet over the property line into your property. What would you do? How would you react? Well, in the first place, how would you notice? But in the second place, what do you mean he moved the fence 2 feet onto my property? But then when you think about it, the Bible is kind of interesting because the Bible kind of suggests that you should do whatever will foster peace. And I said that And someone said, that's a weak answer. God told the Israelites that they were supposed to go in and occupy the land. So my smart alecky response was, oh, I'm so sorry, you're right. I would kill him and take his house. Is that how we're supposed to respond? It's counterintuitive. We don't respond the way the world responds. We don't do things the way the world does things. And you know, it's scary because I think we've gotten away from it. As I was preparing, a historical event came to my mind that, well, a good portion of us were, I wasn't, but a good portion of people in this room were alive for. The Cuban Missile Crisis. And there were 13 days in October of 1962 where it looked like we were going to war with Russia. And the whole thing was Russia had started building missiles in Cuba that were capable of holding nuclear warheads and were capable of striking the United States. And we didn't like that a whole lot. So our response was to put a naval blockade up around Cuba. We're just going to put a blockade up and nothing will get in and nothing will get out. And Russia didn't like that a whole lot. So they started sending warships over, and it looked like they were going to try to break the blockade. And there was a lot of political maneuvering going on, and people were tense. When you read the accounts of the people that were there, that were behind the scenes, that knew what was going on, it's scary how close we came to war. But at the very last moment, a diplomatic settlement was able to be reached. Yay, the diplomats did it, right? Hooray, hooray. Except a lot of people don't know the story behind the story. There's a little church in St. Paul that was praying. And there were little churches all over the United States that were praying. Lord, have your will in this situation. Lord, come in and do what only you can do. Lord, keep the peace. Lord, don't send us into World War III. Prayers all over the United States. Prayer meetings, all-night prayer vigils. And at the last moment, a diplomatic settlement was reached. Why? Because the Bible says that God is able to turn the neck of the ruler to his will. We don't do things the way the world does. 2 Corinthians 10:4 says, "For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds." Somewhere along the line, we've lost this idea. We've lost this idea that prayer is our weapon, and we've come up with this whole new thing for prayer. Prayer is our shopping list. Lord, I want this, I want this, I want this, I need this, give me this. Lord, can I have this? That's not what prayer is all about. That's not how we're supposed to be praying. Prayer is our weapon. And we've abandoned it for programming. We've abandoned it for production values. We've abandoned it for political strategy and power brokering. And I hear the words of Carmen echoing in my head. He sang a song called "A Little Bit More Conviction." And just a little line that's in there, he says, "What happened to the Bible and some prayer?" We don't fight the way the world fights. We've replaced the power of the Holy Spirit with the power of what we can do. What happened to the Bible and prayer? We've moved away from the way God does things, and we have begun to move towards the way the world does things, and it will not work. Sarah and Howard were sitting down with friends of ours yesterday who are missionaries, and Sarah asked a question. Said, how does he see the direction of the Assemblies of God going? And his response was, too many are content with a form of godliness and denying the power. Oh, we do all the right things and we say all the right things, and we actually say we believe in all the right things. When's the last time that we were on our face at the altar waiting for God to actually move? You guys know that we used to do that, right? There used to be, that used to be a standard thing. If it didn't happen Sunday morning, it certainly happened Sunday night. Oh, but we can't have Sunday night services. We have to get ready for work on Monday. We have to get ready for this or that. We're way too busy for that stuff. Hogwash. Someone said, I think it was Charles Wesley was talking. Someone was talking to him, and he was going through his schedule for the day. And he had to ride by horseback for 4 hours to get to this place where he had to do this. And then he had to ride for 2 hours to go here. And then he had to go 3 more hours to go somewhere else. And he said, but he needed to spend his day with 3 hours of prayer. And someone said, but you've got so much stuff going on. How can you possibly spend that much time in prayer? And he said, if I don't spend that much time in prayer, all that other time will be wasted. All that other time will be wasted. I believe it was his brother John Wesley who, legend tells us that if you were able to go into his house where he lived and looked beside his bed, there would be grooves in the floor where his knees were because he spent so much time praying. What happened to the Bible and some prayer? What happened to the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds? The Old Testament is full of stories where people prayed and God did amazing things. Where the situation was hopeless, desperate, and they prayed, and God did something amazing. Do not love the world or the things in the world. Do not do things the way the world does things. Do things the way God does things. God's economy is this. One of my early mentors in life told me, spiritual maturity does not come from the passage of time. It comes from time in the passages. What happened to the Bible and some prayer? Yet we have a prayer meeting and 6 people show up. What happened to the Bible and some prayer? This world is being flushed down the toilet. And we're content to try and do things the way the world does things. Well, maybe if we dance around a little bit and maybe if we blow some smoke, we'll be able to do something and accomplish something. Paul was talking to Timothy. And he said this, but understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty. Look around. There are times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents. She was not. She was a good kid. Ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such. We don't avoid them. We make friends with them. What happened to the Bible and some prayer? What happened? Where did we go off the rails? Because, ladies and gentlemen, look around, we are off the rails. How did that happen? Lord, you told us how things work. You told us that is not up to us. It's up to you. But somehow we got confused and we thought that we had to get involved. Somehow we got confused and we heard the wrong things and we listened to the wrong voices. And we've done it for too long. But Lord, this morning we repent. And we turn to you. And we ask you to do what only you can do. In answer to Solomon's prayer, when he said, Lord, never leave this place, never forsake us, you said there would be a time when you would indeed forsake them because they would turn their back on you. But you said to them at that time, and I believe it's true for this time too, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then I will hear from heaven and I will restore them. Lord, it's not about us. It's all about you. You know, we haven't spent corporate time in prayer for a while. But I think that this is one of those times when, especially after this message, if I didn't do this, then I would be shirking my responsibility. I'm just going to call everybody forward. Come up to the altar. And we're going to spend some time praying, not for our needs, not for our wants, but that we would hear God's will, that he would speak to us, that he would pour his